What if I told you the biggest gardening mistake in August isn't forgetting to water, it's buying the wrong plants? Every year, thousands of gardeners walk into clearance sales convinced they're getting incredible bargains. They see half-price perennials with colorful blooms, load up the cart, and imagine a beautiful garden next spring. But by the time winter is over, many of those bargains are gone. Not because they weren't watered. Not because winter was too harsh. But because they were planted at exactly the wrong stage of their lives. Here's the surprising truth. August isn't the end of gardening season. For certain perennials, it's actually one of the best planting windows of the entire year. Why? Because while the air is beginning to cool, the soil is still holding months of summer warmth. And roots don't care much about air temperature, they care about warm soil. That hidden warmth encourages rapid root growth long before the ground freezes, giving these plants a huge advantage over those planted in spring. That's why experienced gardeners often spend August planting, while beginners assume the season is over. Today, we're counting down 9 remarkable perennials that actually prefer being planted in August. These aren't needy plants that demand constant watering, staking, dividing, or replacing. Once established, they'll reward you with years, sometimes decades, of dependable blooms. And stay with me until number 1, it's a perennial that's been known to bloom faithfully for generations, surviving harsh winters, scorching summers, and changing homeowners with barely any attention. Plant it correctly once, and it may still be flowering long after you've forgotten the day you planted it. Near the end, I'll also reveal the 3 silent mistakes that destroy most August plantings, even when gardeners choose the right plants. Because choosing the right perennial is only half the story. Planting it the right way makes all the difference. Let's begin. Number 9. Sea Holly, Eryngium planum. Most gardeners spend years trying to improve the worst corner of their yard. Sea Holly asks a different question: why fix it at all? This unusual perennial actually performs best where many flowers refuse to grow. Dry soil. Rocky ground. Blazing afternoon sun. Poor sandy earth. Those aren't problems to Sea Holly, they're exactly what it evolved to love. Its metallic blue flower heads almost look sculpted from steel, surrounded by spiny silver bracts that shimmer in sunlight. From a distance, visitors often mistake it for an exotic plant collected from a botanical garden rather than something growing in an ordinary backyard. And pollinators absolutely adore it. Bees, butterflies, and beneficial insects cover the flowers throughout midsummer, turning an otherwise dry garden into one of the busiest feeding stations in the neighborhood. Here's why August planting works so well. Sea Holly develops a long taproot that dislikes disturbance. Warm August soil encourages the taproot to dive deep before winter arrives, helping the plant tolerate drought for years afterward. Spring planting often forces gardeners to water constantly while the plant struggles to establish during unpredictable weather. August gives it a quieter start. One important rule: never spoil Sea Holly with rich compost or excessive fertilizer. Too much fertility produces weak, floppy growth and fewer flowers. Lean soil keeps stems strong, colors more intense, and the plant noticeably longer-lived. Another bonus most gardeners don't realize: those striking blue flowers dry beautifully right on the plant. Leave a few standing through autumn and winter, and they'll continue adding texture to the garden while providing food and shelter for overwintering beneficial insects. Even after snowfall, the frosted seed heads remain surprisingly attractive, proving that a perennial doesn't have to bloom all year to earn its place in the garden. And if you think this one is tough, the next perennial has been quietly outperforming many modern hybrids for decades, without asking for fertilizer, staking, or constant watering. Number 8. Threadleaf Coreopsis, Zagreb. Before we move on, here's something that surprises many gardeners: some flowers actually bloom better when you stop pampering them. Threadleaf Coreopsis, Zagreb, is one of them. If you've ever planted a perennial that looked incredible in May but collapsed into a floppy mess by July, you'll appreciate what makes this variety different. Unlike taller Coreopsis cultivars that often need staking after every summer storm, Zagreb stays naturally compact. It forms a tidy mound about 12 to 18 inches tall, covered in delicate, fern-like foliage that stays attractive even when the flowers take a short break. Then summer arrives, and suddenly the entire plant seems to glow. Hundreds of bright golden yellow flowers cover the foliage, creating what looks like a blanket of sunshine that lasts from early summer well into early fall. It's one of those plants that quietly steals attention without demanding any work from you. Here's why August is such a smart planting time. While many gardeners think flowering plants are preparing to shut down, Zagreb is busy investing energy below ground. Warm soil encourages rapid root production, allowing the plant to settle in before winter. Next spring, instead of spending weeks recovering from transplant shock, it wakes up ready to grow. That's one reason established plants often bloom earlier and more heavily than newly planted spring specimens. But here's the mistake many people make: they plant it in rich, heavily fertilized soil. That sounds helpful, but it's exactly the opposite. Too much nitrogen produces lush green leaves at the expense of flowers. The stems become softer, and the neat mound can lose its tidy shape. Average garden soil is all this perennial asks for. In fact, slightly lean soil often produces the heaviest bloom display. Another feature that rarely gets mentioned: butterflies absolutely love it. On warm afternoons, the flowers become landing pads for dozens of pollinators, adding movement and life that no static landscape can match. Designers also use Zagreb for another reason. Its brilliant yellow flowers create a striking contrast against purple and blue perennials. Plant it beside salvia, Russian sage, or Siberian iris, and each color appears even richer because complementary colors naturally intensify one another. It's a simple design trick that makes an ordinary flower bed look professionally planned. Once established, drought becomes far less of a concern. Deep roots allow the plant to handle dry spells surprisingly well, making it an excellent choice for gardeners who don't want to spend every hot afternoon dragging hoses around the yard. And unlike many short-lived flowering perennials, this one can keep performing for years with nothing more than an occasional trim after flowering. But if you think bright yellow blooms are impressive, the next perennial doesn't win people over with color alone. It wins them with fragrance, silver foliage, and clouds of lavender-blue flowers that seem to float above the garden for months. And once it's established, even deer usually leave it alone. Number 7. Russian Sage, Salvia yangiai, formerly Perovskia atroplicifolia. Have you ever noticed how some gardens seem to shimmer in the late afternoon sun? More often than not, there's a good chance Russian sage is the reason. From a distance, it almost looks like a soft purple cloud floating above the flower bed. Up close, you'll notice thousands of tiny lavender-blue blossoms dancing on tall silver stems, while finely textured foliage releases a pleasant herbal fragrance every time a breeze, or your hand, brushes past it. It's one of the few perennials that looks elegant without demanding constant attention. And August happens to be one of the best times to plant it. Here's the science behind it. Russian sage naturally grows in dry, rocky regions where summers are hot and rainfall is limited. When planted into warm August soil, it immediately focuses on developing a deep, woody root system instead of producing lots of tender new leaves. That strong root system is what helps it sail through winter and bounce back with incredible vigor the following spring. Many gardeners unknowingly make one costly mistake. They treat Russian sage like a thirsty cottage garden flower. They add rich compost. They fertilize heavily. They water every day. The result? Tall, floppy stems that bend after the first heavy rain and far fewer flowers. Russian sage actually performs best when life is a little difficult. Give it full sun, excellent drainage, and resist the urge to overfeed it. Sometimes the healthiest plant is the one you interfere with the least. Here's something else that makes it special. During the hottest weeks of summer, when many flowers begin fading from heat stress, Russian sage is only reaching its peak. Its cool silver foliage reflects sunlight, helping the plant tolerate intense temperatures that leave other perennials struggling. That's why landscape designers often rely on it in parking lots, roadside plantings, and water-wise gardens where irrigation is limited. And the wildlife? Deer usually ignore it. Rabbits rarely nibble it. But bees, butterflies, and other pollinators flock to it from midsummer until the first frost, turning every flower spike into a busy feeding station. One of my favorite landscape tricks is placing Russian sage behind warm-colored flowers like orange gaillardia or golden Coreopsis. The silvery foliage softens the entire planting, while the cool lavender blooms make every warm color in front appear brighter and more vibrant. It's a combination that looks professionally designed, yet requires almost no maintenance. By its third season, one plant can easily grow into a broad, graceful mound that fills empty space like a small flowering shrub, without ever needing regular fertilizing or constant care. But don't get too comfortable. The next perennial completely changes the mood of the garden. Instead of airy clouds of color, it sends elegant white blooms dancing above the border just as most summer flowers are beginning to fade, extending your garden's beauty well into autumn. Number 6. Japanese Anemone, Honorine Jobert. Here's a question most gardeners never ask: why should the garden stop blooming just because summer is ending? By late August, many flower beds begin losing their energy. Coneflowers have dropped their petals, daylilies are fading, and colorful borders slowly turn into a sea of green. That's exactly when Japanese Anemone, Honorine Jobert, begins stealing the show. Its pure white flowers seem to float on tall, slender stems, catching even the gentlest breeze. In the soft light of early morning or just before sunset, the blooms almost appear to glow, bringing fresh life to a garden that's preparing for autumn. It's one of the easiest ways to extend the flowering season without planting a single annual. And August is the perfect time to help it settle in. Unlike many spring-flowering perennials that spend autumn going dormant, Japanese anemones are still actively growing. Warm soil encourages fresh roots to spread while cooler air reduces stress on the leaves, giving the plant the ideal balance for establishing before winter. By next autumn, you'll understand why patient gardeners treasure this perennial. But here's the mistake that causes disappointment: many people expect instant results. In its first year, Honorine Jobert often looks modest, almost shy. Some gardeners even think they've wasted their money. Don't be fooled. Underground, it's building a strong network of roots and rhizomes. Once established, that quiet investment pays off with taller stems, more flowers, and a graceful colony that expands slowly year after year without becoming invasive. It's a lesson many of the best long-lived perennials teach: the slowest starters often become the most dependable performers. Another reason this plant deserves a place in your garden is its versatility. Unlike many flowering perennials that demand blazing sunshine all day, Japanese anemone thrives in morning sun with afternoon shade, making it perfect for bright woodland edges, the east side of a house, or under the filtered canopy of mature trees. Those are locations where many colorful perennials struggle. Pollinators appreciate it too. Late in the season, when nectar sources become scarce, bees still visit these elegant blooms, helping support beneficial insects as autumn approaches. And here's a designer's secret: plant white flowers near darker shrubs or evergreen backgrounds. The contrast makes every bloom appear brighter, especially during the golden hour before sunset. Even a small planting can create a dramatic focal point simply because white naturally reflects more light than surrounding colors. It's elegance without effort, a perennial that quietly transforms the garden exactly when everything else begins winding down. But the next plant couldn't be more different. Instead of delicate white flowers dancing in the breeze, it produces massive tropical-looking blooms the size of dinner plates, yet survives freezing winters that would kill ordinary hibiscus overnight. Number 5. Hardy Hibiscus, Summer Storm. If someone walked into your garden in midsummer and saw flowers nearly the size of dinner plates, they'd probably assume you lived somewhere tropical. That's the magic of hardy hibiscus, Summer Storm. At first glance, it looks far too exotic to survive a freezing winter. But that's exactly what makes it so surprising. Unlike tropical hibiscus that collapse at the first frost, this hardy perennial simply goes to sleep. As temperatures drop, the entire plant dies back to the ground. It may even look like it's completely gone. Then, almost as if someone flipped a switch, new shoots burst from the roots in late spring, stronger, taller, and ready to produce even larger flowers than the year before. It's one of nature's greatest disappearing acts. And August is the ideal time to prepare that performance. Here's why. Even though the spectacular blooms steal all the attention, the real work happens underground. Warm late summer soil allows the roots to expand rapidly while cooler autumn temperatures reduce stress on the foliage. By the time winter arrives, the plant has already built the underground energy reserves it needs for an explosive comeback next season. Think of August planting as investing in next summer's show, not this year's. Now here's a mistake that catches many gardeners off guard: they assume every perennial wants dry feet. Hardy hibiscus is different. It naturally grows in moist meadows, riverbanks, and wet lowlands. If you have a spot in the yard that stays consistently moist after rain, where other perennials often struggle, this is one of the few plants that will genuinely appreciate those conditions. Just don't let the soil remain permanently waterlogged. Consistent moisture is the key to enormous blooms. And speaking of those blooms, each flower can reach 8 to 10 inches across, opening fresh each morning like giant tropical plates. While each individual bloom lasts only a day, the plant keeps producing new buds for weeks, creating an almost continuous display through the hottest part of summer. But flowers aren't its only attraction. The deep burgundy foliage of Summer Storm creates dramatic contrast long before the first bud opens. Even without flowers, the dark leaves make nearby green plants appear richer and more vibrant, adding depth and sophistication to the border. Butterflies quickly discover it. Hummingbirds often visit too, hovering around the enormous blossoms as though they've found an oversized nectar station. One landscape trick professionals use is planting hardy hibiscus toward the back of a sunny border, where its bold foliage provides a striking backdrop for smaller flowering perennials in front. The contrast in leaf size and flower shape creates a layered look that makes the entire garden feel larger and more dynamic. It's the kind of plant that becomes a conversation starter every single summer. Visitors rarely ask, "What fertilizer did you use?" They ask, "What on earth is that?" And if you think giant flowers are impressive, the next perennial earns its place for the exact opposite reason. No oversized blooms. No flashy colors. Just tall, elegant flower spikes that native bees absolutely swarm, and a natural architectural beauty that quietly transforms an ordinary flower bed into something unforgettable. Number 4, Culver's root, Veronicastrum virginicum. Some flowers demand attention with bold colors. Culver's root earns it with elegance. The first time you see it in full bloom, it almost doesn't look real. Tall, perfectly upright stems rise 5 to 6 feet into the air, each topped with slender white flower spikes that branch like the arms of a chandelier. When a summer breeze moves through them, the entire plant sways with a graceful motion that instantly brings life to the garden. It's the kind of perennial that makes a flower bed feel taller, more natural, and professionally designed. Yet surprisingly few gardeners grow it. That's because most people overlook native plants in favor of flashy hybrids. They're missing out. Culver's root is native to the North American prairies, where it evolved through centuries of blazing summers, heavy thunderstorms, and unpredictable droughts. That natural resilience is exactly why August planting works so well. The warm soil encourages rapid root growth while the cooling air reduces stress on the foliage. By the following summer, the plant is already prepared to send up strong vertical stems without needing constant attention. Here's a mistake that often limits its potential. Many gardeners cram tall perennials too close together. At first, everything looks lush. A couple of years later, poor air circulation invites mildew, plants compete for sunlight, and the entire border starts leaning toward open space. Culver's root needs room to show its true form. Give it space to mature, and those elegant flower spikes become a living sculpture instead of disappearing in a crowded planting. Now here's something fascinating. During peak bloom, this perennial becomes one of the busiest pollinator plants in the entire garden. Native bees, honeybees, butterflies, even tiny beneficial wasps gather around the nectar-rich flowers throughout the day. If you've ever wanted a garden that feels alive with movement and sound rather than just color, Culver's root quietly delivers exactly that. Its bloom season also fills an important gap. Many early summer flowers are beginning to fade when Culver's root reaches its peak, helping maintain continuous interest instead of leaving empty weeks between flowering seasons. Landscape designers often place it near ornamental grasses. Why? Because the upright flower spikes contrast beautifully with the soft, flowing texture of grasses, creating movement from two completely different forms. It's a simple pairing that adds depth without adding maintenance. Even after flowering finishes, the seed heads remain attractive well into autumn, providing subtle winter interest before finally being cut back in late winter or early spring. 1. Planting. Years of structure. Very little effort. And now we're entering the top 3. The next perennial may not look dramatic during its first growing season. But every autumn, it transforms into one of the most spectacular golden displays you'll ever see, proving that sometimes the greatest garden surprises arrive long after the flowers have faded. Number 3, Threadleaf Blue Star, Amsonia hubrichtii. Some perennials earn their place because of spectacular flowers. Others become unforgettable because they deliver two completely different seasons of beauty. Threadleaf Blue Star does both. In late spring, the plant covers itself with dozens of delicate, star-shaped, sky-blue flowers that seem to float just above the soft, feathery foliage. Beautiful, but that's not why experienced gardeners plant it. The real magic happens months later. Just when most gardens begin fading into dull shades of brown, the fine green foliage suddenly transforms into a glowing mass of brilliant golden yellow. In the afternoon sun, it can rival the brightest maple tree, creating a second season of interest when many perennials have already disappeared. It's like getting two completely different plants for the space of one. And that's exactly why August is such a smart time to plant it. Warm soil encourages rapid root development before winter, allowing the plant to spend its first spring building strength instead of recovering from transplant shock. While it may look modest during its first year, don't underestimate what's happening underground. This is a perennial that believes in playing the long game. Here's a mistake many gardeners make: they judge it too quickly. After one season, some decide it's too slow and replace it with something flashier. Big mistake. Threadleaf Blue Star is famous for improving with age. Every year, the clump becomes fuller, denser, and more graceful, eventually forming a perfectly rounded mound about 3 feet tall and wide that almost never needs dividing. Patience is rewarded in a spectacular way. Another reason this plant deserves far more attention is its toughness. Once established, its deep root system makes it remarkably drought-tolerant. Deer almost always leave it alone, rabbits rarely bother it, and common garden diseases are practically non-existent. That's a rare combination. And because the foliage is so fine and airy, it pairs beautifully with plants that have bold leaves or large flowers. Imagine it growing beside peonies. The broad, lush peony leaves create a dramatic contrast against Amsonia's delicate texture. Or picture it alongside hardy hibiscus, where the giant blooms rise above a soft golden cloud in autumn. Those combinations create visual layers that keep a border interesting even when only one plant is flowering. Here's another hidden benefit. Unlike many perennials that collapse after heavy summer rain, Threadleaf Blue Star keeps its naturally rounded shape. No staking. No tying. No constant straightening after every thunderstorm. Just dependable structure from spring until frost. It's one of those rare plants that quietly makes everything around it look better. And now, only 2 plants remain. The next one has been decorating gardens for centuries, producing elegant blooms above graceful, grass-like foliage, and unlike many of its famous relatives, it almost never asks to be divided or fussed over. Number 2, Siberian Iris, Caesar's brother. There are 2 kinds of gardeners. Those who spend every few years digging up crowded irises, trimming rhizomes, and replanting them, and those who quietly grow Siberian iris and skip that job altogether. If you've only grown bearded irises, this perennial is going to surprise you. Meet Caesar's brother, one of the toughest, longest-lived Siberian irises you can plant. Its rich violet-blue flowers seem almost painted by hand, with delicate veining that catches the morning light. Each bloom rises above a fountain of slender, arching green leaves that stay fresh and upright long after flowering ends. That's one of its greatest strengths. Most spring-blooming perennials finish flowering, then spend the rest of summer looking tired. Not this one. Even after the blooms fade, the graceful foliage continues, adding texture and movement to the garden for months, making it valuable long after its flowering season has passed. Here's why August planting gives it an advantage. As summer begins winding down, the soil remains comfortably warm while cooler nights reduce moisture stress. Instead of putting energy into producing flowers, the plant quietly expands its dense network of fibrous roots. By the following spring, those established roots are ready to produce stronger flower stems and a fuller clump than newly planted spring specimens ever could. Nature is giving the plant a head start. Most gardeners don't realize that. Now here's the mistake to avoid. Many people plant Siberian iris in the hottest, driest corner of the yard simply because they've heard irises love sunshine. They do love sun. But unlike bearded irises, Siberian irises also appreciate consistent moisture, especially during their first growing season. Think of them as meadow plants rather than desert plants. Once established, they're surprisingly resilient, but giving them evenly moist soil early on rewards you with healthier foliage and far more impressive blooms. Here's another reason professional landscapers love this perennial. It handles difficult weather beautifully. Heavy rain? No problem. Strong winds? The flexible stems bend without snapping. Cold winters? It emerges every spring as though nothing happened. Few flowering perennials combine elegance with that level of reliability. And the wildlife benefits don't stop there. The early season flowers attract bees searching for nectar after winter, while the dense clumps provide shelter for beneficial insects throughout the growing season. Then autumn arrives. Instead of collapsing into an untidy mess, the upright foliage gradually turns soft golden shades before winter, adding one final season of quiet beauty before snowfall. It's dependable. Graceful. Long-lived. Exactly the kind of perennial you plant once and enjoy for decades. But now we've reached the moment we've been building toward since the beginning. Number 1 isn't just another beautiful flower. It's a perennial that has survived generations of gardeners, harsh winters, neglected gardens, and changing homeowners, often blooming faithfully for 50 years or more from the exact same spot. And once you understand the single planting secret that determines whether it flowers for decades, or never flowers at all, you'll never plant one the same way again. Number 1, Peony, Peonia lactiflora. If I could plant only one perennial and never buy another flowering plant for the rest of my life, it would be a peony. Not because it's trendy. Not because it's expensive. Because almost no other perennial offers the same combination of beauty, longevity, and reliability. There are peonies growing in Europe that have bloomed for well over 100 years. In North America, it's common to find plants that have survived generations of homeowners, quietly flowering every spring while houses are renovated, fences replaced, and entire landscapes redesigned around them. The peony simply stays. That's why experienced gardeners don't think of peonies as purchases. They think of them as investments. Every year they become a little larger, produce a few more blooms, and ask for almost nothing in return. Here's why August is one of the smartest times to plant one. During late summer and early autumn, the soil is still warm enough for vigorous root growth, but the cooler air allows the plant to settle in without the stress of producing lots of new leaves. Instead of wasting energy above ground, every bit of effort goes into building a powerful root system that fuels next spring's spectacular display. It's nature's perfect planting schedule. But there's one tiny mistake that ruins thousands of peonies every year. And it's so common that many gardeners assume their plant is defective. They plant it too deep. Those small reddish buds, called the eyes, should sit only about 1 to 2 inches below the soil surface in colder climates. Bury them deeper than that, and the plant may grow beautiful green foliage year after year, yet refuse to bloom. Some gardeners wait 5 or even 10 years before discovering that one simple planting error. Get the depth right the first time, and you've solved the problem before it ever begins. Another reason peonies have remained garden favorites for centuries is their incredible resilience. Once established, they rarely need dividing. They're naturally resistant to most pests. Deer usually ignore them. And their massive, fragrant blooms make some of the finest cut flowers you'll ever bring indoors. In fact, one mature plant can produce enough blossoms to fill multiple vases while still leaving plenty outside to enjoy. Here's a little trick many experienced gardeners use. Plant peonies where they'll receive the gentle light of the morning sun. Early sunlight helps dry dew from the leaves, improving air circulation and reducing the chance of fungal problems while still providing plenty of energy for flowering. It's a small decision that pays off for decades. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson peonies teach us. The best gardens aren't built in a weekend. They're built one wise planting decision at a time. A single afternoon in August can reward you every spring for the next 30, 40, even 50 years. That's a return on investment very few plants can match. Before you plant, the 3 mistakes that kill August perennials. Now that you've met all 9 plants, there's one final step. Even the toughest perennial can struggle if it's planted the wrong way. Here are the 3 mistakes that cause more failures than anything else. Mistake 1: watering too often, but not deeply. Many gardeners give new plants a quick sprinkle every evening. It feels helpful. In reality, it encourages roots to stay near the surface, exactly where late summer heat dries the soil fastest. Instead, water slowly and deeply 2 or 3 times each week during the first 6 weeks. The goal is to moisten the soil 6 to 8 inches deep, encouraging roots to grow downward where moisture lasts longer. Deep roots create stronger plants. Mistake 2: forgetting the mulch. Freshly planted roots experience huge temperature swings during August. A 2 to 3 inch layer of organic mulch acts like insulation. It keeps the soil cooler on hot afternoons, reduces evaporation, suppresses weeds, and protects young roots as the first frosts arrive. Just remember to keep mulch a few inches away from the crown of the plant to prevent rot. Mistake 3: planting too late. Warm soil is the secret behind successful August planting. Wait until late September in colder regions, and roots simply won't have enough time to establish before winter. Aim for at least 6 to 8 weeks before your average first hard frost. That single decision can make the difference between a perennial that thrives next spring and one that struggles through its first winter. So here's the complete countdown: sea holly, threadleaf Coreopsis Zagreb, Russian sage, Japanese anemone Honorine Jobert, hardy hibiscus summer storm, Culver's root, threadleaf blue star, Siberian iris Caesar's brother, and the timeless peony. Each one proves something important. The strongest gardens aren't filled with the most expensive plants. They're filled with the right plants, growing in the right place, planted at the right time. Choose wisely this August, and next spring you won't be replacing failed plants, you'll be watching a garden that's already one season ahead. If you enjoyed this countdown, let me know in the comments, which of these 9 perennials would you plant first, and which one surprised you the most. And if you're planning an August planting this year, subscribe and turn on notifications. In the next video, I'll show you how to combine these perennials into a border that delivers continuous color from spring until the first hard frost, with almost no maintenance once established. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.